You have been in suspension for 9999999999999.
Oh god fucking damn it. Maelstrom is among my favorite decks right now, within my inner circle of all-time favorites even, because is there really anything quite like him? I've always been a water kid growing up, and even though Vanguard doesn't do a lot directly with elements or simple ideas, everything's always, yeah, it's darkness, but they wear Louis Vuitton. But Maelstrom, among Vanguard's other famous dragons, are great representations of their inspiration. He is a terrifically cool water dragon that's just as esoteric to Vanguard's own design. This motherfucker is a centaur, and I love him for it. His evolved form, Glory Maelstrom, is a full-on metamorphosis of an evolution, and is a famous geezer for originating the first ever Sentinel restrict. Today though, Maelstrom keeps the Aquaforce idea of attacking en masse, but has a bit of a strange layout since his initial release was pretty subpar, but the Glory wave of support recontextualized some cards. So I'll do my best to try and explain it as quickly as possible. Your grade 1 when rode upon searches for a Blue Storm Armada. There's only one right now and it's a grade 3 set order that resurrects an Aquaforce or Tier Dragon on place, and then gives a unit 5k for each of your other ones. Okay card, but you haven't seen anything yet. Glory Maelstrom is your main Vanguard and has some effects. First off, during your turn, as long as OG Maelstrom is in Soul or on rear, Glory gets his act abilities and also gives the front row 5k for each of your Blue Storm Armadas, giving a much needed safety blanket to not get shut out by one defensive trigger while you're attacking for the nth billion time. OG Maelstrom has the act ability to discard a card and call a Tier Dragon or Aquaforce from Soul to rear. And then if the opponent is at grade 3 or greater, it also gets the ability to counterblast 1 when it attacks for the first time this turn to immediately restand, letting you squeeze in an extra attack. At the end of the turn, it goes back to Soul, keeping it protected from the opponent, unless there's some kind of pig. Next, Glory has the auto ability that whenever an OG Maelstrom attacks, Glory gives it 5k for the turn. And then if it's the 4th attack or more, you retire an opponent's rearguard and draw a card, allowing for some hand tanking and Aquaforce, so thanks for breaking the mold, Grandpa. Finally, Glory Maelstrom also has the ability to rest 2 Blue Storm Armadas when any Maelstrom attacks to prevent the opponent from calling Sentinels to the Guardian Circle for that attack. Meaning Elementario works since you don't call orders, but otherwise the opponent needs to rely on raw numbers and praying for no overtriggers. It's my belief that any deck that can punch hard enough and take some hits always stands a chance no matter what it fights. To add on to this solid aggressive core, you tap into Aquaforce's history of restanding or position swapping rearguards to throw a million attacks at your opponent. A key part of the deck is Ilacrinus, a grade 2 that, on call, checks top 7 for a Maelstrom or Blue Storm Armada to add to hand and then either discard a card or put a card from hand into Soul. This lets you run Glory in the ride deck and main deck Maelstrom to put him into Soul this way. On top of that, Ilacrinus counts as an Aquaforce and after attacking, can counterblast 1 to swap positions with another rearguard, letting another standing rearguard attack. Similarly, Tidal can restand after attacking for the second attack, so long as your Vanguard Maelstrom is still standing. Flow Strike can swap with the unit in front of it after it attacks, and Wheel Assault after boosting can Soul Blast 1 to swap 2 rearguards. Other key cards are Dancing Cutlass, which only works if you have a clan but no strides, to Energy Blast 3 when discarded to draw a card. In drop, it can also bind itself and another copy to countercharge 1. Eleftheria, on call from hand, energy charges 2, which is actually kind of a pretty rare ability to just charge energy. And at the start of the battle phase, if you have a Tier Dragon Vanguard, she can Soul Blast 1 to give a rearguard 5k for the turn whenever it attacks, letting you actually stack a ton of buffs on a restanding Maelstrom from Soul. Finally, I also run Sound of Surging to search for my grade 3s, Emerald for a 20k shield and back pocket soul charges, Valnut to restand Maelstrom and get an extra retire and draw, as well as Fire Regalis to search more, checking top 5 for a card to call to rear, or a draw if you don't want any of them, and importantly not taking up your order per turn. And finally, for a bit of extra space, Orenioxo to get Persona Shield tickets. Grade 0 10k Shield Blitz orders that you can only get if you run a Persona Ride Vanguard that also set your orders to 2 for the turn, meaning you can play an extra one of them or any other Blitz order, and they're actually a 15k shield if the opponent is using a non-energy generator crest. Here's my build. And here's my opponent's build. My friend Dan is playing VEISSRUGR today, and that also requires a bit of explaining. Your grade 1 lets you get the Moongate set order, which checks top 7 to call a Mythish unit, or if you're at grade 3, it instead picks 3 to put 2 into order zone and call the last to rear, where VEISSRUGR then calls them out to a column on attack and gives the front row 5k. VEISSRUGR can also activate Moongate's search effect to keep the flow of beasts coming. And finally, he can bot deck a Mythish to give a Mythish 5k shield when it's used to guard. To keep this intro brief, we'll go over the Mythish as they come up. But for a final touch, I Lift Golmani is another key to the deck. It's a grade 3 normal order that costs a counterblast to use but gives all Mythish a permanent 5k for the turn, or another 5k if they were called by an effect, which VEISSRUGR and the Moongate can both do. This, among VEISSRUGR's other normal orders, Lunarites, as well as Personarites, can be searched by the third Mythish coming in DZ10. But for an easy solution, Dan just draws Lunarites when needed. Before we go any further, I need to interrupt and say my channel is sponsored by Ronin Cards. It's a fine store for fine cards that you can use to support me, whether you play Vanguard or even Ultraman. You can find the store using the link in the description and use code SHERIFF for 5% off your order. Doing so helps support me as well as my channel, so if you're ever looking for some cards, I'd like to ask you at least give them a look. And while I have your attention and already begging for your money, if you're the type to commission artists, I've actually been drawing quite a lot recently, and here are my rates. If you ever want to have a chibi, perfect for stickers or energy markers or anything else, or just some pretty boys or girls, I'd really love to draw for you. I'd also really love your money. So if you're ever interested, you can give me a message on Discord or Twitter. Thanks so much for the quick interruption. Enjoy the rest of the video. While we have some time though, let me explain that whenever we do a cut and it looks like we didn't shuffle our deck or pay a cost, it's just because I cut it out because it took too long and I just wanted to make the video easier to watch. So the game starts up with not much happening. Dan searches out for his Moongate and puts it into the order zone, and attacks, which will not hit. When riding upon my grade 1, I'm going to search for my own Blue Storm Armada, so it's kinda like we're both playing Grade Gate decks. Some neurons fire in my head, and I see that I'm at grade 2, which means it's time to call Ilacrinus. Checking top 7 and adding a Blue Storm Armada to hand, and then putting a Maelstrom from hand into soul. So there we go, hardest condition of the deck already set up. I also call Eleftheria, which is gonna energy charge too, and then I get to attacking. On to Dan's next turn. He rides his grade 2, which will use its effect to check top 7, and this time only find one Mythish, which will go to hand. He then Energy Blast 3 to use Moongate's effect, checking top 7 for a Mythish to call a rear, and finds one. I intercept with Ilacrinus, keeping damage low and also putting him in drop zone where I can resurrect him again and keep searching. Maelstrom is rode, and with the grade 2's effect when rode upon, I check top 7 for an Aquaforce or Tear Dragon to call to rear, and call OG Maelstrom. Next, the Blue Storm Armada gets played, resurrecting Ilacrinus, and once again using his skill to check the top 7 cards in my deck. A Persona Ride goes to hand, one card from hand goes into soul, and I call Ilacrinus one more time. Another Persona Ride to hand, and another card into soul. Finally, I realize I should be at 8 energy, which I'll then use to pay 7 and draw 1. Next at start of battle phase, Eleftheria will use her skill, Soul Blasting 1 to give the back row Ilacrinus 5k whenever he attacks, just to make sure that his attacks still hit even if the opponent gets a defensive trigger. Glory Maelstrom is giving the front row 5k, so Ilacrinus attacks for 15, to which the opponent will double intercept. At end of battle, Ilacrinus counterblasts 1 to swap positions with the other Ilacrinus. Next, he attacks for 28, and Dan gets a heal trigger. Glory attacks for 18k, meaning I have 1 to pass. I get an Elementaria and my Overtrigger. In wanting to squeeze out as much damage as possible, I give the power to Glory and the effect to restand to Maelstrom. Unfortunately, the second defensive trigger is gonna kinda ruin that, but at least Maelstrom is attacking twice and drawing 1 each time. Even though Glory is giving him a 5k buff every time he attacks, it's still only 23 than 28, which of course is not enough to hit the opponent's 30k. VEISSRUGR is rode and will immediately use his skill to Soul Blast 2 and activate the Moongate Search effect. This time only 2 are found, so 2 Crow Rings will go to the order zone.
Bad angle there.
Yeah, works pretty good. I'll be cutting the sides out in editing, so it's just the view.
So you don't see the bodies.
You don't see my jerking penis.
Top 7 again.
Why are you jerking with your penis? Why? Why are you doing this?
Why am I doing this? I don't know. But then Dan activated the Moongate itself to check top 7 again for more Mythish, in this case getting a Rosnir and nothing else. Rosnir on place gets the ability to attack the opponent's Vanguard as well as one of their front row rear guards. Dan then also calls a Crow Ring, which will get boost since he's at grade 3, and then also calls Garzorams, which on place during battle phase can counterblast 1 to attack from the back row, but so long as the opponent is at grade 3, he gets 5k, or 15k if you play Abnormal Order. Dan is of course now doing this with Aleph Golmani, giving all of his Mythish 5k for the turn. If they are called by an effect, however, they get an additional 5k, which will only go to Rosnir right now. Rosnir attacks, gets 5k and Energy Blast 3 to draw him a card, but I guess in the moment we forgot Rosnir was called by an effect, so Dan's only attacking for 20k right now, which I guard with a 10k shield when I would have needed 15. I have shield, so it's not that big of an issue, but still worth noting. At the same time though, I would have never guarded the rearguard Maelstrom, so that's just a free hit. VEISSRUGR on attack though is going to counterblast 1 and call 2 Crow Rings to a column. He also gives the front row 5000 power, and this time we do remember that these 2 Crow Rings were called by an effect, so they get 10k from the order altogether. I take 2 damage from Dan's critical, in which I also get a critical and give the power to Van. Still though, the Crow Rings are attacking for 45k right now, so I take it. Garzorams is now attacking for 60 because of his plus 15 if he played an order, so I do PG, but now, it's our turn.
我が心と行動に一点の曇りなし。すべてが正義だ。
With the Persona Ride on deck, I discard a card to call Maelstrom from Soul to Rear, giving him an ability to restand the first time he attacks this turn. I then play a Blue Storm Armada, resurrecting another Maelstrom and giving the restanding one 5k. Next at start of battle phase, Eleftheria is going to give Maelstrom 5k whenever he attacks. Maelstrom immediately attacks, and this is 48k to Van, immediately restanding. With a front trigger and 2 10k Mythish, buffed by VEISSRUGR's effect, Dan guards for 53. Since Glory is giving the front row another 10k by having 2 Blue Storm Armadas, Ilicrinus attacks for 30, to which the attack hits. At end of battle, he swaps with another, which will just be swapping again later. We're now in the ideal situation where I have 2 front row Maelstroms to give any triggers to, and Glory is going to be preventing the opponent from calling Sentinels for this attack, which means the opponent no guards. The next Maelstrom, without any buffs, just a booster, attacks for 46, and since it's the 4th attack or more, Glory is going to retire an opponent's rearguard and let me draw a card. This attack will be stopped by a Perfect Guard, but at least that's one that wasn't used on Glory. And then finally, because Eleftheria and Glory have both given a 10k buff to Maelstrom now, Maelstrom is attacking for 58,000, retiring another rearguard and also drawing me a card because it's the 4th attack or more this turn. Dan narrowly survives, and the Maelstrom called from Soul returns. VEISSRUGR does not have a Persona Ride, but is still going to be using the Moon Gate to check top 7. Calling the Crow Ring, and also putting Garzorams and Rosnir into Order Zone. Another Aleph Golmani is getting played, and giving all the Mythish another 5k. In a last-ditch effort, Dan is also calling the last card in his hand a draw trigger. VEISSRUGR on attack is calling out Rosnir and Garzorams is going to be able to attack from the back row. VEISSRUGR gives the front row 5k, but Garzorams has a massive plus 25k from his own effect, as well as from Golmani. Using Elmadar as a 20k shield, I put myself up to 33 to the opponent's 18, making a 2 to pass. Rosnir attacking for 33 loses me my front row rearguard and 1 more damage. 34 from the Crow Ring, to which I guard for 43. And then finally, 35 from Garzorams gets met with a Perfect Guard. On my turn, the day's almost over. No Persona Ride, but Ilicrinus grabs me another Blue Storm Armada, making me put another card from hand into Soul, but I'll use the Blue Storm Armada to resurrect something, and in this case we'll go with Tidal. He's a certified OG, so we had to get him in here at some point. Another Eleftheria comes out, which will charge me 2, and at this point I realize I should have been at 9, so I'll Energy Blast 7 to draw again. And at the same time, it's not the same without that boy out there, so I discard 1 to call that motherfucker Maelstrom out. And finishing this the same way you always want to, Maelstrom is attacking, getting plus 15 from both Eleftheria's and Glory. And he's immediately restanding, so that means the next time he attacks he's getting another plus 15 from the same 3 sources. But of course, we're not going to see that happen. thank you so much for watching. If you're curious about that Maelstrom scene, it is a line from my favorite JoJo character, Funny Valentine. So I felt like it matched Maelstrom and how he's all about justice too, so that, and I also used Funny Valentine's theme from the fighting game, which I felt also really matched Aquaforce. So that's also why the thumbnail looks kind of provocative, I don't know. But anyways, thanks for waiting around so long for this new video. I actually have another one coming out tomorrow. It's finally the 1000 subscriber special, months after I hit the milestone. So just, again, thank you for watching, and have a great day.